Guys, the main theme of today's seminar is it's centered around a question that I've been asked a lot lately, which is what is the new meta of the Leglock game? Like, where is the meta of the Leglock game going? And so I'm going to make a tangent for a second before we get back to like the actual techniques. So I don't know what the new meta is going to be, because you can't predict something like that, because that's more of a cultural thing than an actual like. Okay, so like when people think about the meta, like the development of a meta in a game, I think what people naturally assume is it's a process of investigative analysis of the available data, and people are trying to find the most efficient and effective solutions to problems. But in reality, that's like 100% not what's happening most of the time. There is some extent to which that takes place. People are trying to solve problems more efficiently and effectively, but it's very scattered and disorganized. And I think what influences the development of how a community approaches like the meta is more like a cultural thing. Like someone prominent and famous will say something, people will just go, oh, he's really famous, so it's probably true. Like I could give specific examples, like people will say this is always better than this, when it's not really the case. But someone really well known says it, so everybody listens to it. So it's more of a cultural thing than an actual like scientific based thing, right? So I don't like saying where I think the meta is going to go, because I have no idea. I don't know how people are going to approach solving problems, okay? But I'll tell you where I think it should go, okay? Where I think it should go, in my opinion, if you wanted to solve these defensive problems that we began the seminar with, right? Hip mobility and them pulling their knee out of our knee line as efficiently as possible, okay? What you want to do, I think, is drive towards the following things. You'd want to adhere to the principle of double trouble, which means controlling both legs for as long a period as possible, which would mean controlling both legs, not just to the point when we get a submission, but to the point where we're doing the submission and we finish the submission. So we finish the submission the whole time controlling both legs. And ideally, we do that with our arms, because it's easier to do that with our arms. It's easier to control the secondary leg with our arms than it is with our legs. Okay, it's like kind of more plausible to get to that point, okay? So what that means is, okay, so we have one of our arms controlling the secondary leg. We're gonna have to use only at least like one arm and our legs alone to apply the submission on the primary leg, okay? This is where I think, at least one direction of where I think the meta ought to go. There's a lot of other things, of course, but this is one direction I think it ought to go, okay? The direction of diagonal ashi, the position we're looking at now. Getting to this position, okay, it's extremely stable. Okay, my hips are on the floor, it's very, very stable. We can contrast that with reverse ashi, which we're gonna look at reverse ashi later. Reverse ashi has many of the same features as diagonal ashi, but it's less stable. So, which we'll talk about later. But so diagonal ashi is very stable. It allows us to control both legs all the way through to the submission, which is that's what we're looking at now. We're gonna look at the submission. We're gonna look at two submissions. All the way through the break of the leg. You can break his primary leg while you're still holding the secondary leg in diagonal ashi with two very effective submissions, which you're going to use in like a 1-2 combo, okay? And it's not as mechanically complicated as the leg trap saddle. I think it's much simpler to get into, okay? There are less moving pieces, there's less stuff that can go wrong, okay? So anyway, let's talk about the submission now. So sit right here for me. Yeah, just rotate this way. No, not your back. Yeah, sit right there. No, yes. Okay. All right, so guys, we're gonna be in diagonal ashi. Get your grip as high as you can get it, okay? Like this, okay? Get a rear naked choke. Get the foot of the inside leg like really low on his glute, okay? And get your hips really close to the head. Because what we want to be able to do at first is allow his leg to curl around my hip. So curl this leg. Yep, so it curls around my hip. Okay, we want to make sure he can do that at first, okay? The main way you're going to break somebody here is by not letting him do this, by blocking this off. But at first we want him to have that ability so we can understand how the two submissions that we do from here interact with one another, okay? So I'm going to be here like so. He can curl his leg around my hip. Okay, he can only do it if my hips are close to him, okay? So now, I'm gonna fall to my right side, and we lock up a triangle. Now, my left knee comes towards my face, and I flare my knee out, and I go foot to foot. Now, we're gonna have to rotate. Now guys, my left hand, I'll do this first. My left hand, guys, it has a very important task, okay? We call this the control hand. I'm not just gonna hold the secondary leg with it, I'm gonna hold the secondary leg and ideally my own thigh or my shin, okay? Sometimes if he's really expanding his hips, you have to start here. So I call these anchor positions for your control hand. So this is my control hand. This is anchor position 1. Imagine you're like rock climbing. You wanna get there, but sometimes you have to start here. So you go here, and then maybe you can climb up to where you want, right? So you have to start here maybe. If you don't have to, you can get right here. This is even better. You have to start here, that's okay. You go here, and now what I'm gonna do is I hug my own thigh, and I climb to either here or here. Why would I choose one of these over the other? This, in my opinion, is ultimately the tightest possible position to anchor your control hand. But it can be difficult if his knees are very far apart and you're like kind of like here. I want to be here. This is where I want to be. This is very strong. My fingers laced around the top of my thigh. But it's not always easy to get that. Sometimes it's really hard, especially if you're sweaty. I find I like slide off and stuff. Okay, if you cannot get to there, this is very good too. Okay, in fact, there are some advantages of this, okay, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But this is stronger for like finishing the guy, okay? This is good too. If I have to grip my shin, I make a false grip and I flare my, I flare my elbow. I'm doing this basically, and flexing my tricep, okay? Like so, okay? So you may have to start here, all right? So I'm here, I fall to this side, I lock up my legs in a triangle, then I go foot to foot. Now I settle the control hand, I anchor it either here, and then once I get there, I try to climb to either here or here. And as I'm doing this, I can hug my knee, I'm pushing my knee internally to make it easier for me to get my control hand where I want it. Once I've achieved this, put my hand on the floor, and I start pushing myself to this side. Now, as I'm doing this the whole time, I can re-hug my knee and resettle my control hand. Okay, I can put this, make sure it stays tight. Now, let's rotate again. Let's just go, go that way. Yeah, keep going, keep going. Good, okay. Now guys, when I land here, try to have his ankle in between your ribs and your thigh of my left leg. That will lock it in place. Okay? That's one of the advantages I think of this. It's a lot easier to lean here, and now when he goes to pull this leg out, it's really, really hard, right? Versus, if we're like here, now go to pull it. See how it's not in between my ribs and my thigh? That's no good. Okay, so you want to be here, here, and now leaning on it, it's tough for him to pull it out, all right? Now, the submission I'm gonna do is dependent upon what he's doing with the primary leg. If his leg is curled around my hip, yep, stay right here. This is perfect here, good. We're gonna do what's called a Z-lock. Okay, so I take my right arm, I go underneath the ankle of the primary leg, and I don't twist. I'm gonna drive towards his far shoulder, okay? And you sit up and drive it towards the far shoulder. So where did you feel that? Knee, and okay, that's good. Sometimes they'll also feel it in the hip.
Oh, it's constantly.
Okay, good, okay. Right. So that's good. So we go here. I'm gonna go very, very slow with this. Don't just twist. Go up and push in that direction. Up, nice and slow, like so, okay? If I can, I'm gonna get a C grip on the foot. This is better. But it can be really hard. Like if your shoulder's not super flexible, even if your shoulder is flexible, I think it's hard. This is always easier. The downside of this, if he's smart, he can straighten the leg out, and you can put it back inside. So be careful of that, okay? So if I'm here and I take this under and I feel it's coming across, I'm gonna bring it out, okay? So I'm here, I go to do the submission, he straightens the leg out, yeah, ooh, get it here. Always keep this on the outside, okay? Remember, we talked about what's one advantage of doing a submission on the primary leg with one arm. It's that if I fuck it up, I can try again. If both of my arms are committed to the submission and nothing is controlling the secondary leg, he gets out of this, I lose everything. Whereas here, I have hypothetically infinite chances to keep going. I miss one, I'm just gonna try again. It's no big deal, all right? So just make sure he stays in this position though, okay? So again, we fall to this side, I lock in the triangle. I go foot to foot, my anchor hand locks in place of my thigh or my shin, okay? Come back this way, try to get his ankle in between my ribs and my thigh, okay? If you fell there with a good position of the anchor hand, or the control hand rather, it will most likely be in a good spot, the ankle of his secondary leg. If this is sliding, I hug my knee, I tighten it, hug, tighten, get everything in place. Now, if the leg is bent around my thigh, which will only be possible if my hips are close to him, we're gonna go for a Z-lock. The Z-lock is the main initial threat from this position. It's, in my opinion, not the strongest submission from this position, but everything is built around that initial threat of the Z-lock, okay? That'll make more sense in a moment, all right? We threaten the Z-lock, or we go for the Z-lock by going underneath. I sit up, and we drive towards the far shoulder with our arm. If I can get the C-grip, I can, not always possible. Okay, we're gonna look at a moment later where it is a little bit more possible, okay? Yeah. If I ever feel like the leg is coming across my chest, bring it back, bring this arm back out. Don't let him get it across. Okay, now, what else can he do with his leg? He can also straighten it out, which is what a lot of people are gonna very naturally do. Because if his leg is bent, stop bending your leg for me. If his leg is bent, this is where the Z-lock occurs. So what people are gonna do very naturally is they're gonna think, I want a stiff leg. Okay, when he stiff legs, look what happens. His knee faces the ceiling. So we go back, we curl. As soon as he stiff legs, his knee is gonna face the ceiling. Do that again, good. And the side of his knee comes against the inner part of my thigh. Okay? All right, so that's very important, all right? So when he does that, go to do that. Yep, and stay right here. So right now his knee is facing the ceiling, and the side of his knee is against the inner part of my thigh. What we're gonna do is, it's called a side knee bar, all right? What I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna take my left foot, I push into my right foot, and my hips come out. As I do this, I'm internally compressing my knee and tapping new feel pressure. Good. So that is, in my opinion, the strongest submission in this position. Okay, the three most devastating breaks I've ever seen in this position are not from Z-locks, they're from that move, okay? It's really, really strong. But it comes from the threat of the Z-lock. He doesn't want to get Z-locked, he's bending his leg around my hip, bend your leg around my hip, and we have the side knee bar. When he stiff legs. So he stiff legs, this leads to the side knee bar, okay? And if he doesn't want to get side knee barred, he's gonna have to rebend his leg, yeah, and then we can go for the Z-lock. But the thing is this, if we go back, if he makes the mistake of stiff legging here, and I get my hips out, so I'm telling you guys initially in the position to make sure your hips are close to your training partner so that he can bend his leg around your thigh, because once you get your hips out, there's not that space. A lot of you guys are probably already feeling this when you're drilling the move. Yeah, I'll be nice and close. That's when you're drilling the move, if you're not close to him, you guys are probably feeling your leg is stuck straight, right? Some of you guys are feeling that. Yeah, we can use that to our advantage. When my hips are close to my training partner, yes, he very naturally just bends around my hip. That's good for the Z-lock, but it's not good for the side knee bar, okay? When I start to get my hips away, so yeah, he's stiff legging here. He's doing that. I'm not forcing him to do that. He's doing that against the threat of the Z-lock, right? As I bring my hips away, there comes a point now where, now if he realizes he fucked up, it's hard to like go back, okay? So that's where we would get the side knee bar. So we're here. We're gonna fall. I come here. Take your time with this. Don't rush this. Okay? Be patient. Just try to get everything locked up as tight as you can. Now he extends this leg. He stiff legs. My hips come out. I push my left foot into my right foot. Make sure my control hand stays anchored tight. Hips come out. Leg comes down. And you'll get a very strong finish here. Okay? We can make this even tighter by taking this arm. You can go, bend it for me first. We can go underneath, so I'm going for the Z-lock. I'm going for the Z-lock, and he starts to stiff leg. My right elbow my right hand is gonna cup my thigh near my glute and my elbow. So I'm gonna do this like without because it goes on very fast. I'm gonna go like this. Okay, so what we're doing here is, it's called the side knee bar, but it's actually very mechanically similar to an inside heel hook in the sense that what's happening is I'm buckling the knee to the inside, okay? I'm pushing the knee to the inside and the ankle is getting locked against my ribs. So there's like when the leg is straight, it's safe. If I extend the leg in this fashion, like a crescent shape, that's how you can tear the ligaments of the knee, okay? So I'm pushing the knee internally, but if I also push the ankle externally, right? So bend your leg for me, like a Z-lock. So without controlling the secondary leg, so it's a little bit safer, point your knee to the ceiling now. Yeah, so my hips come out and look, my elbow comes up. Do you guys see like how I'm creating contrary forces here? Yeah, so who saw Diego Pato's finish against Kennedy Maciel at ADCC? Did any of you guys see that?
Yeah.
No? Okay. All right. You saw it? All right, one person did. Okay, somebody did. Okay, good, good. That was, a lot of people called it a Z-lock. It was from the diagonal ashi. The break, if you look at, you can see the knee buckle and
Was that the severe break?
Yeah, it was pretty bad, yeah. Yeah, so that was not actually from the Z-lock. If you look, Kennedy straightens the leg, so straighten the leg for me here, and actually, come back a step. He was here, Diego Pato was here going for the Z-lock, okay? Then Kennedy straightened, and what Diego did was he cupped his own thigh and he flared his elbow, okay? And then he brought his hips out, and he was actually a side knee bar that broke the leg. Then the leg broke, and he went back to the Z-lock. The leg was already broken by that point. Yeah, you could see the knee buckle. That was most likely where the ligament damage occurred, okay? So in my mind, when I look at that, I'm like, that was not a Z-lock, that was a side knee bar, okay? So we're here, here, here. Get the control hand in place. I come here. He doesn't want to get Z-lock, so he straightens that out. Yeah, I'm gonna do this as light as I can. My hips come out, and now two things are happening. I'm gonna compress my right knee as I continue to push my left foot, and I flare my left elbow up. And that's like the strongest possible side knee bar I think that you can get. It's a very, very brutal submission that Diego got over Kennedy. Okay, does this make sense, guys? Yes? All right, let's drill these two submissions very slowly. All right, 1, 2.